Think again. Have you ever thought that you already knew everything about the funeral of one of the most influential popes in history? Think again. Behind the solemn prayers and the grand ceremonies, there were astonishing records set, unseen in the history of the Catholic Church. A gathering of over 400,000 hearts, leaders from all corners of the world, a final resting place that broke a century-old tradition. Each detail whispers the legacy of a man whose life was marked by humility, courage, and love. Today, we invite you to walk with us through moments that not only broke records, but also broke hearts. Let's begin. April 26, 2025. The heart of Vatican City beat stronger than ever before. More than 400,000 souls, from pilgrims with worn sandals to world leaders in immaculate suits, all converged on St. Peter's Square under the soft golden morning light. It was a sea of faith and memory, stretching as far as the eye could see. Never before had so many nations, so many hearts, gathered together not for a summit nor a treaty, but for one humble shepherd. Flags from every continent fluttered in the breeze. Children sat on shoulders, old friends clasped hands, strangers wept side by side. The air shimmered with prayers whispered in dozens of languages. From the presidents of superpowers to refugees who had once found hope in his words, each soul stood as living testimony that Pope Francis had been more than a leader. He had been a father, a bridge, a voice for the voiceless. In that moment, under the ancient stones of St. Peter's, the world remembered what true greatness looks like. Not in titles, not in power, but in love. And so, this astonishing crowd became part of his final legacy. Pause. Point fives. For more than 100 years, the final resting place of a pope was a certainty. Beneath the sacred stones of St. Peter's Basilica, a hallowed tradition that even history dared not disturb. Until now. Pope Francis, the people's shepherd, once again chose the road less traveled. He requested not the grandeur of the Vatican crypt, pause. Point fives, but the quiet grace of Santa Maria Maggiore, a basilica steeped in light and devotion where he had often come to pray alone at dawn. Here, not beneath marble monuments, but among the humble prayers of pilgrims, he wished to rest. It was a choice that shattered centuries of protocol and spoke volumes without a single word. It reminded the world that the true measure of greatness is 0.5, is not in where you are laid to rest, but how you chose to walk among the living. In the soft twilight of Santa Maria Maggiore, his legacy whispers still. A life of simplicity, a heart for the forgotten, a faith that transcended stone and ceremony. And as the evening bells ring out across Rome, it is not the echo of tradition we hear. It is the echo of courage. No golden crown, no marble epitaph, just a simple stone. It's etched with one word, Franciscus. Beneath the vast domes and towering arches of Santa Maria Maggiore lies a tomb so humble it almost disappears into the silence. At its heart, a single white rose. No fanfare, no spectacle, only a symbol of the life he lived, a life rooted in simplicity, in service, in surrender. Visitors from every corner of the world approach the grave in awe. They do not find monuments to power, they find a whisper. A reminder that greatness is not measured in grandeur, but in grace. Under the soft glow of candlelight, the single rose seems almost to breathe, as if carrying forward the spirit of the man who chose love over status, compassion over crowns, faith over fame. And so, as the world looks on, it is not an empire we remember, but a soul. Franciscus, forever in bloom. Among the dignitaries, among the cardinals, among the sea of cameras and flashing lights, stood 40 souls. Souls often unseen, souls often unheard, the homeless, the refugees, the trafficked, the forgotten. Handpicked, not for their power, not for their titles, but for the simple fact that they had once been his beloved priority. As the casket of Pope Francis passed by the great doors of Santa Maria Maggiore, these 40 stood tall, with trembling hands, with weathered faces, with tears that spoke louder than any anthem. In that moment, the hierarchy of the world crumbled, and the first became last, and the last became first. A quiet testimony that mercy is not a word carved in stone. It's a hand extended in darkness, a place made at the table. For Francis, the poor were never a photo opportunity. They were family. And in the end, they stood as the truest witnesses of the gospel he lived. 40 candles of hope flickering against the marble walls. A silent choir singing a final thank you. In the midst of sorrow, in the shadow of a life celebrated, a different kind of history was written. 2 leaders, 2 countries, locked in a story of conflict and cries for peace. Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, side by side, not across a negotiation table, not before flashing cameras, but within the solemn silence of a funeral. 15 minutes, pause, point face. A conversation not scripted by diplomacy, but carved out by humanity. They spoke of ceasefires, of possibilities that for a moment seemed almost within reach. 2 men, with the weight of millions on their shoulders, lowered their voices, lowered their guards. And for those 15 fleeting minutes, hope cracked open in a world too accustomed to division. No treaties were signed. No headlines captured the fullness of what was exchanged. But somewhere, beneath the ancient skies of Rome, a seed was planted. A reminder that even amid mourning, peace can find a way to whisper. And sometimes, hope begins in the quietest conversations. Sometimes, the most powerful statements are made without a single word. As the sun climbed higher over St. Peter's Square, 2 figures approached each other through the hush of a mourning crowd. Donald Trump, Emmanuel Macron, once locked in tense debates, trading sharp words across oceans. Now, simply men facing a moment larger than politics. Their hands met, a firm, deliberate handshake, not out of obligation, not out of strategy, but out of something older. Respect, acknowledgement, the fragile, fleeting hope that even adversaries can find common ground when standing before greatness. Around them, no speeches were made, no banners unfurled, only the silent testimony of a single human gesture. One handshake, one pause in the tide of conflict, a reminder that before nations, before ideologies, we are simply people. And in moments like this, it is not the battles we remember, it is the bridges we dare to build. It was not a single voice that rose above St. Peter's Square. It was a chorus, a symphony of tongues and prayers woven together from every corner of the earth. Latin, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, Swahili. Each word sacred, each melody an offering. This was no ordinary mass. It was a tapestry of humanity, stitched together by the faith Pope Francis had spent his life nurturing. Voices young and old, harmonizing in languages they may not have fully understood, but whose meaning was felt deep in the soul. The swelling notes of a hymn in Tagalog, the tender murmur of prayers in Polish, the soaring chant in French. Each sound, a tribute to a man who believed that God's voice was never bound by borders. Even the winds seemed to listen. Even the marble giants of the Vatican held their breath. In that sacred gathering, no nation stood taller than another. No language was louder than another. Only one song, a song of unity, a song of farewell. And as the final notes drifted toward the heavens, it was clear. The world had not just lost a pope, it had gained an everlasting melody of hope. Amid the ocean of mourners, something unexpected stirred. A river of youth, faces fresh with wonder, eyes bright with hope. Many had first come seeking a glimpse of Carlo Acutis, the young saint in the making. But they stayed for something greater. For the spirit of Pope Francis himself. They lined the cobblestone streets, they filled the open plazas, they lifted candles into the morning air. It wasn't duty that called them, it wasn't tradition. It was resonance. They saw themselves in his courage to be different, in his gentleness, in his fierce, unwavering love for those left behind. There, among ancient stones, history met the future. And the future answered. With each young voice raised in prayer, with each silent vow to carry forward his legacy of compassion. The flame did not flicker, it leapt higher. A new generation, claiming not just the past, but the dream he left behind. Hope, alive and rising. In the end, Franciscus. It wasn't the grandeur of the ceremonies or the number of dignitaries that defined this day. It was a single word, etched in stone, etched in hearts. Franciscus. No titles, no crowns, no monuments reaching for the heavens. Only a legacy woven through simple acts of love. A shepherd who chose to walk where the lost wandered. A bridge builder in a world too often divided. A servant leader who believed that power was found not in ruling, but in kneeling. Today, the stones of Rome witnessed not just a farewell, but a call. A call to live differently, to choose humility when pride beckons, to choose compassion when judgment tempts, to remember that the truest measure of a life is not carved in marble, but in the hearts we leave behind. Franciscus showed us the way. Now it is our turn to carry the light forward. In small acts, in quiet kindness, in fierce, unwavering love, forever and always.